Michelle Richardson's fingertips drummed against her leather steering wheel as she glanced at the dashboard clock. 8:43 a.m. Her presentation to secure the Thompson account was scheduled for 9:15, and she had spent weeks preparing for this moment. The morning sun streamed through her car windows, highlighting the stack of meticulously prepared documents on her passenger seat. As she navigated her silver BMW through the tree-lined streets of Oak Haven, her mind raced through the presentation points. This case could make her the youngest partner at Davis and Mueller law firm. The thought brought a smile to her face as she remembered her mother's words. Excellence isn't just about being good, it's about being unstoppable. The coffee in her travel mug had grown cold, untouched since she left home. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus, her husband. "You've got this, babe. Show them why you're the best." 15 years of marriage, and he still knew exactly when she needed encouragement. The flash of blue and red lights in her rearview mirror shattered her focus. Michelle checked her speed, 32 in a 35 zone. She signaled and pulled over smoothly, her heart rate accelerating despite her calm exterior. 7 years of corporate law had taught her to maintain composure in tense situations. Officer James Parker approached her window, his boots crunching on the gravel shoulder. Michelle already had her license and registration ready, her hands visible on the steering wheel, a routine her father had taught her years ago. The morning breeze carried the scent of blooming magnolias from nearby gardens. "License and registration," Officer Parker stated flatly, his face unreadable behind mirrored sunglasses. Michelle handed over the documents with a steady hand, noting how his fingers barely touched hers as he took them. "I'm heading to an important client meeting," Michelle explained professionally, her voice carrying the same confident tone she used in courtroom negotiations. "Was there a problem with my driving?" The officer's pen scratched against his notepad. "You rolled through the stop sign at Maple and Oak." His tone left no room for discussion, though Michelle was certain she had made a complete stop. Time seemed to stretch as Officer Parker returned to his patrol car. Michelle's phone displayed 8:52 a.m. The Thompson presentation loomed closer, but years of experience had taught her to remain patient during these encounters. She used the time to mentally rehearse her opening arguments, refusing to let this delay shake her confidence. When Officer Parker returned, he handed her a ticket through the window. $300 fine, he stated mechanically. "You can contest it in court or pay online. Have a nice day, ma'am." As the patrol car pulled away, Michelle examined the citation. The fine seemed unusually high for a rolling stop, if she had even committed the infraction. She placed the ticket in her briefcase, her legal mind already analyzing the situation. Something felt off about the entire encounter, but she pushed the thought aside. Right now, the Thompson account needed her full attention. Starting her car, Michelle checked her appearance in the rearview mirror, adjusting her pearl necklace, her grandmother's graduation gift. Her reflection showed the same determined expression she'd worn through law school, through every challenge, through every victory. This morning was just another hurdle to clear. She pulled back onto the road, now racing against time. The Thompson presentation awaited, and Michelle Richardson had never let an obstacle derail her path to success. The Thompson presentation had been a triumph. As Michelle sat in her home office that evening, the earlier victory felt distant as she stared at the traffic citation on her desk. The $300 fine seemed to mock her legal sensibilities. Her computer screen glowed with the county court's payment portal, but her cursor hovered over the contest citation button instead. Something about Officer Parker's demeanor and the excessive fine amount kept nagging at her analytical mind. She opened a new browser tab and typed Oak Haven traffic fine averages. 20 minutes turned into 2 hours as she dove deeper into public records, her cold dinner forgotten on the desk beside her. "You're still at it." Marcus appeared in the doorway, holding 2 steaming cups of chamomile tea. He knew her well enough to recognize when she'd caught on to something significant. Setting one cup beside her keyboard, he peered at her screen. "What's got you so interested in traffic violations?" Michelle rubbed her tired eyes, accepting the tea gratefully. "Look at these numbers. She pointed to her hastily created spreadsheet. I found 37 cases of stop sign violations in Oak Haven this year. The average fine is $125. But there are these outliers. Her voice trailed off as she filtered the data. Marcus leaned closer, his business analyst background kicking in. These higher fines seem to follow a pattern. Exactly. Michelle's voice quickened with purpose. I checked social media and local news archives. Every fine over $250 was issued to. She hesitated, the implications settling heavily between them. People who look like us, Marcus finished quietly. Michelle opened her email and began composing a message to her college friend, Lisa Zhang, now a data analyst at a prestigious research firm. I need more data to confirm this. These are just the publicly available cases. Her phone buzzed. A message from Sarah Chen, a statistician she'd worked with on a corporate fraud case last year. Still up for coffee tomorrow? I've got something interesting to run by you. Michelle smiled, remembering Sarah's brilliant work with pattern recognition software. Perfect timing, she whispered, quickly typing a response. The dining room table transformed into a command center over the next few hours. Michelle created a detailed timeline of local traffic court rulings, her legal pad filled with notes about Judge William Barrett's involvement in each case. Her laptop chimed with responses from other local attorneys she'd reached out to, each message adding another piece to the puzzle. Look what I found, Marcus called from his laptop. He turned the screen toward her, showing a 5-year-old news article about a dismissed discrimination complaint against the Oak Haven traffic court. The case had disappeared quietly, buried under procedural dismissals. Michelle felt her pulse quicken. This wasn't just about a traffic ticket anymore. Her years of corporate law experience had taught her to recognize systemic patterns, and this one was becoming clearer by the minute. Near midnight, she sat back in her chair, surrounded by digital and paper trails. The story they told was compelling but incomplete. She needed more data, more cases, more evidence. Her legal training reminded her that patterns alone weren't enough. She needed irrefutable proof. As she finally prepared for bed, Michelle caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The determined expression reminded her of her mother's face years ago, fighting to keep their family business during tough times. Some battles chose you, her mother had said then. Tomorrow, she would meet Sarah for coffee, armed with her preliminary findings and a growing conviction that she had stumbled onto something far larger than a simple traffic fine. Sleep would have to wait. Justice rarely kept convenient hours. The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy as Michelle and Sarah Chen claimed a quiet corner table. Sarah's laptop displayed a sophisticated data visualization program, its complex interface reflecting in her rimless glasses. Michelle spread her preliminary findings across the table, careful to keep her voice low despite her growing excitement. I've been developing this pattern recognition algorithm for financial fraud cases, Sarah explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard. But with some modifications, we could adapt it to analyze court records and fine distributions. She paused, turning the screen toward Michelle. Look what happens when we map the data points you collected. The scatter plot transformed into a heat map, revealing distinct clusters of fine amounts. Michelle leaned forward, her legal expertise merging with Sarah's technical brilliance. Can we overlay demographic data from the census tract? She asked, already seeing the possibilities. Better yet, Sarah responded, pulling up another window. I can create a machine learning model that identifies correlations we might have missed. It's like having 1,000 researchers working simultaneously. Michelle's phone vibrated. A text from Lisa Zhang. Found something interesting in the archived records. Call me. She excused herself briefly to step outside, her heart racing as Lisa shared her discovery. Historical court records, supposedly lost during a system upgrade, had been backed up on an old server. Returning to the table, Michelle found Sarah surrounded by colorful data visualizations. We need to make this understandable to everyone, Michelle mused, remembering her years of presenting complex cases to juries. Can we create interactive dashboards, Hours flew by as they refined their approach. Sarah's software began identifying subtle patterns, specific days of the week, particular patrol routes, even weather conditions that corresponded with disparate fine amounts. The data told a story that became impossible to ignore. Back at her office, Michelle created a secure digital repository. She remembered the lessons from her corporate cases. Documentation was everything. Each data point was meticulously sourced and cross-referenced. She imagined presenting this evidence, anticipating every possible challenge to its validity. Her office phone rang. It was Judge Martinez from the federal court, returning her call about historical fine patterns in neighboring districts. "What you're describing," he said carefully, "reminds me of a case from my early days on the bench. Have you looked into the Harrison precedent of '98? Michelle's fingers flew across her keyboard, adding another layer to their growing database. The Harrison case provided a crucial legal framework, one that could help shape their findings into actionable reform. That evening, as she reviewed their progress with Marcus, Michelle realized they had created something revolutionary. It wasn't just about proving bias. They were developing a new methodology for analyzing judicial patterns. Her dining room wall now displayed Sarah's most compelling visualizations, each telling part of a larger story. "It's like a digital fingerprint," Marcus observed, studying the patterns. His business experience helped identify key metrics they hadn't considered. Every decision leaves a trace. Michelle stepped back, taking in the full scope of their work. The strategy was coming together: data science, legal precedent, and statistical analysis, converging to reveal what had been hidden in plain sight. She thought about her daughter's school project on everyday heroes, understanding now that sometimes heroism looked like spreadsheets and algorithms. Her phone chimed with another message from Sarah. "Models finished processing. You need to see these results." The excitement in Sarah's text was palpable. Tomorrow, they would begin preparing their findings for presentation. But tonight, Michelle allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had built more than a case. They had created a blueprint for transparency in the justice system. Looking at the visualization of fine distributions glowing on her laptop screen, Michelle remembered a quote from her favorite justice: "Sunlight is the best disinfectant." Their digital sunlight was about to illuminate some long-hidden corners of the legal system. Michelle stared at the email from the American Bar Association, reading it for the third time. The subject line remained unchanged: Invitation to Keynote, Innovation in Legal Accountability Summit. Her research had caught more attention than she'd anticipated, and now she had a platform to share it with the nation's top legal minds. Her office door opened as Jessica, her youngest associate, rushed in with a tablet. "The law school blog picked up our story," she announced breathlessly. "They're calling your data analysis approach groundbreaking." And look who commented. She held out the tablet, showing responses from several prominent civil rights attorneys. Michelle scrolled through the comments, her mind already forming connections. Each supporting voice added credibility to their findings, but also raised the stakes. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Princeton's Data Science Department requesting our methodology. This is getting big." At home that evening, her daughter Sophia bounded into the kitchen, waving a paper excitedly. Mom, we're doing a project on change makers in our community." The pride in her daughter's eyes made Michelle pause. "Can I interview you? Miss Thompson says your work is like a modern-day superhero story." Michelle pulled Sophia into a hug, feeling the weight of responsibility settle more firmly on her shoulders. "Of course, sweetie. But you know, the real superheroes are the people brave enough to share their stories with us." She thought of the dozens of individuals who had come forward after seeing their initial findings. Her laptop chimed with a video call from Marcus. He was at a business conference in Chicago, but his excitement carried clearly through the screen. "The National Center for Court Innovation wants to adapt our tracking system," he reported. "They're offering resources, support, everything we need to scale it nationwide." As Michelle prepared her presentation for the upcoming summit, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was unfolding. Her dining room wall now featured a complex web of connections, cases, patterns, and testimonies forming an undeniable narrative of systemic issues requiring attention. Sarah arrived late that night with fresh analytics. "Look at this clustering," she pointed to a new visualization. "The pattern repeats across 3 different jurisdictions. It's not isolated." They worked until midnight, refining their presentation for the summit. The next morning, Michelle received an unexpected call from Judge Martinez. "Be careful," he warned quietly. "Your research is making waves. Some people prefer the old ways." His concern was genuine, but so was his support. "But don't stop. This work matters." During her lunch break, Michelle visited Sophia's school for the project interview. Watching her daughter take careful notes, she realized they were creating more than just legal precedent. They were showing the next generation how to challenge injustice through intelligence and determination. Back at her office, emails flooded her inbox. Law firms across the country wanted to implement her data tracking system. Civil rights organizations offered partnerships. Technology companies proposed collaborations to scale their solutions. As evening approached, Sarah rushed in with breaking news. "The state Supreme Court just announced an official review of fine disparities," she exclaimed. "They cited our preliminary findings." Michelle stood at her office window, watching the sunset paint the city skyline. Their work had evolved from a single traffic stop into a movement for transparency and accountability. The upcoming summit would be just the beginning. Her phone buzzed one last time that day. A message from an anonymous court clerk. "What you've uncovered goes deeper than you know. There are more records. Keep digging." Michelle saved the message, understanding that tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, she had a superhero interview to finish with her daughter, reminding her that the most important changes often start with the simplest questions. The Oak Haven County Courthouse stood silent as Michelle adjusted her presentation materials one final time. Early morning light filtered through the high windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Sarah sat beside her, running last-minute diagnostics on their visualization software. "All systems ready," Sarah whispered, her laptop displaying their meticulously prepared digital presentation. "The interactive models are responding perfectly." She squeezed Michelle's hand briefly, a gesture of solidarity before the storm. The courtroom doors opened, admitting a stream of people. Legal observers from the State Bar Association, local press with their notepads ready, and curious law students filled the gallery. Michelle noticed Lisa Zhang slipping into a back row, giving a subtle nod. Their backup data was secure, distributed across multiple servers. Judge Barrett entered, his usual stern expression firmly in place. "Case number 2024 CV 789, the clerk announced. "Richardson versus Oak Haven Traffic Court." The familiar words felt different today, charged with possibility. Michelle rose, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she approached the podium. The projector hummed to life, displaying the first visualization, a stunning 3-dimensional representation of fine distribution patterns across the county. "Your Honor," Michelle began, her voice steady and clear, "what I present today isn't just about my traffic citation. It's about patterns that emerge when we let data tell its own story." She gestured to the display, where colorful data points danced and reorganized themselves. Judge Barrett leaned forward, his reading glasses reflecting the moving patterns. "Counselor, are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything, Your Honor," Michelle interrupted smoothly. "I'm letting the numbers speak." She nodded to Sarah, who initiated the next sequence. "Over the past 5 years, our analysis shows a statistically significant correlation between fine amounts and specific demographic factors." The courtroom's atmosphere shifted as the evidence unfolded. Michelle presented each finding with precision, her corporate law experience evident in every carefully chosen word. Graphs transformed into heat maps, showing clear patterns of disparity that couldn't be explained by chance. A reporter's pen dropped, the sound echoing in the hushed room. Judge Barrett's composed facade cracked slightly as Michelle revealed the historical data from neighboring jurisdictions, showing how Oak Haven's patterns deviated from state averages. Furthermore, Michelle continued, pulling up the machine learning model's predictions. When we apply this analysis to future cases, the algorithm predicts fine amounts with 92% accuracy based solely on demographic data, before any traffic violation occurs. Judge Barrett removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Ms. Richardson, these allegations are serious. They're not allegations, Your Honor. They're mathematics. Michelle's voice remained respectful but firm. Our methodology has been peer-reviewed by statisticians from 3 universities. The code is open source. Every data point is verified and cross-referenced. From the gallery, she heard the rapid typing of journalists documenting every word. Lisa Zhang sat forward, recording everything on her tablet. The law students whispered among themselves, recognizing they were witnessing a pivotal moment in legal history. I move to enter these findings into public record, Michelle stated, her heart pounding but her voice unwavering. And I request an immediate review of all traffic court decisions from the past 5 years. The silence that followed felt eternal. Judge Barrett studied the data still flowing across the screen, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. This court cannot ignore empirical evidence of this magnitude. Motion granted. Michelle felt the shift in the room, the collective intake of breath, the rustle of movement as reporters rushed to file their stories. But it was Sarah's quiet, "We did it," that made the moment real. As she gathered her materials, Michelle noticed Judge Barrett still staring at the display, watching the patterns that had been hidden in plain sight throughout his career. Sometimes, she realized, the most powerful changes came not from loud confrontations, but from undeniable truths presented with quiet confidence. The real work would begin tomorrow, but today, data had spoken truth to power, and power had listened. The sunrise peeked through Michelle's office blinds as she scrolled through her overflowing inbox. 3 days after the courtroom presentation, her story had taken on a life of its own. A notification popped up. Another major news outlet requesting an interview. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. CNN just ran the story. We're trending. Marcus appeared in her doorway with fresh coffee and a proud smile. Have you seen what the law students are doing? He turned his tablet toward her, showing a sophisticated social media campaign. #Data4Justice was trending nationwide, with young legal minds sharing their own analytical findings from different jurisdictions. Professor Chen from Harvard Law wants to integrate your methodology into their clinical program, Jessica announced, walking in with a stack of messages. And the State Bar Association is requesting your presence at their annual conference. Michelle sipped her coffee, watching the morning news coverage on her office TV. The anchor was interviewing Judge Martinez, who had become an unexpected champion of their cause. What Ms. Richardson and her team have developed, he was saying, isn't just about traffic fines. It's about bringing transparency to our entire judicial system. Her computer chimed with a video call from Lisa Zhang. Michelle, you need to see this. Lisa shared her screen, showing dozens of emails from court clerks across the country. They're sending us their data voluntarily. They want to be part of the solution. A knock at her door revealed David Thompson, her firm's managing partner. The partners want to create a new division, he said, beaming. Data-driven justice initiative. We want you to lead it. Before she could respond, Sarah rushed in, nearly spilling her own coffee. The tech community is mobilizing, she exclaimed. 3 software companies have offered to help scale our analysis platform. They want to make it accessible to every courthouse in the country. Michelle's phone lit up with a message from Sophia. Mom, my school project about you got picked for the district showcase. Ms. Thompson says it's inspiring other kids to use math and computers to help people. The day continued in a whirlwind of developments. Retired judges began speaking out, sharing their own observations of systemic issues they'd noticed but couldn't quantify during their careers. Law enforcement officials reached out, expressing interest in implementing preventive analytics. By afternoon, Michelle found herself in a conference call with civil rights leaders from across the nation. "Your approach is revolutionary," one veteran activist said. "You're fighting inequality with irrefutable data. No one can argue with math." A notification alerted her to a new online petition. Former defendants from Judge Barrett's court were organizing, sharing their stories, and supporting the call for comprehensive review. Their personal testimonies added human depth to the statistical evidence. As evening approached, Marcus forwarded her a link to a newly created scholarship fund. A group of corporate lawyers had pooled resources to support minority students pursuing careers in legal technology and data science. They'd named it the Richardson Initiative. Michelle sat back in her chair, taking it all in. The movement had grown beyond her, becoming something larger than she'd imagined. Her phone buzzed again. Judge Martinez wanted to meet tomorrow. "There's momentum for systemic change," his message read. "We need to seize it." Sarah appeared one last time that day, her laptop displaying their latest analytics. "Look at this," she said softly. "Other researchers are replicating our results in different contexts: criminal sentencing, bail decisions, plea agreements. The patterns are everywhere." As the office grew quiet, Michelle stood at her window, watching the city lights come alive. What had started as one woman's challenge to an unfair ticket had evolved into a nationwide movement for judicial transparency. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, she allowed herself to feel the power of unexpected allies and collective purpose. Her computer pinged with one final email, an invitation to speak at her daughter's school career day. "Because," the teacher wrote, "our students need to see that heroes come in all forms, even ones who fight injustice with spreadsheets and statistics." The gleaming screens in Michelle's new office displayed real-time data from courthouses across the state. What had begun as a simple spreadsheet had evolved into an elegant monitoring system, affectionately dubbed Justice Pulse by her team. Sarah sat nearby, fine-tuning the latest version of their mobile app. "The beta testing results are incredible," Sarah announced, pulling up the user feedback dashboard. "Public defenders are saying it's revolutionizing how they prepare cases. They can spot patterns we never even considered." The app's interface showed a clean, intuitive design that made complex data accessible to everyone. Michelle's phone lit up with a message from Marcus. Apple wants to feature the app in their Tech for Change showcase. They're calling it a game changer in legal technology. She smiled, remembering their late-night discussions around the dining room table where this all began. Jessica hurried in with excitement radiating from her face. The state Supreme Court just announced their decision. The room fell silent as she pulled up the news feed. The justices had unanimously approved mandatory data transparency protocols for all state courts, using Michelle's methodology as the foundation. "Mom," Sophia's voice carried through the speakerphone. "We just learned about your app in computer class. Ms. Wilson says it's a perfect example of using technology to help people." The pride in her daughter's voice made Michelle's heart swell. The afternoon brought a stream of visitors to the Data-Driven Justice Initiative's new headquarters. Law students eagerly demonstrated how they were using the system to support pro bono cases. Court administrators shared success stories of implementing the tracking protocols. "Watch this," Sarah called out, demonstrating their latest feature. The main screen displayed a live map where courtroom decisions lit up in real time, each data point contributing to a growing picture of judicial patterns. "We've added machine learning algorithms that can predict potential issues before they become systemic." A notification popped up. The American Bar Association had selected their initiative for their annual Innovation in Justice Award. But what caught Michelle's attention was the accompanying message. 3 other states were adopting their protocols as standard practice. Later that day, Michelle visited a local high school's coding club, where students were learning to create their own data analysis tools inspired by Justice Pulse. "You showed us that programming isn't just about making games or websites," one young girl told her. "It's about making things right." Back at the office, Lisa Zhang presented their latest findings. "The awareness is creating change on its own," she explained, showing declining disparity trends across participating jurisdictions. Judges know their decisions are part of a transparent system now. Michelle's phone buzzed with a text from Judge Martinez. National Judicial Conference wants to make this standard curriculum for all new judges. You've started something extraordinary. Attached was a photo of young judges in training, all using the Justice Pulse app. As evening approached, Sarah demonstrated their newest breakthrough, an AI-powered feature that could suggest fair and consistent fine amounts based on actual offense severity, stripped of all demographic data. Complete objectivity, she said proudly. The algorithm only sees the action, never the person. The day's final meeting was with a group of tech executives interested in adapting their methodology for other sectors. Your approach to transparency could transform corporate governance, healthcare, education. The possibilities seemed endless. Walking through the office later, Michelle paused to watch her team at work. Young lawyers and programmers sat side by side, their enthusiasm palpable as they refined the system that was changing the face of justice. Her laptop chimed with one last email. Sophia's teacher sharing a video of her daughter's presentation about Justice Pulse at the science fair. Innovation isn't just about new technology, Sophia was saying, echoing her mother's words. It's about using it to make the world better. As the sun set outside her window, Michelle reflected on how far they'd come from that first traffic stop. Sometimes the biggest changes started with the smallest moments of courage, growing into movements that reshaped the very system they sought to improve. 1 year after the launch of Justice Pulse, Michelle stood at the podium of the National Legal Innovation Summit, surveying the packed auditorium. Faces both familiar and new looked back at her, judges, attorneys, activists, and tech innovators, all united by a shared vision of transparent justice. When I received that traffic ticket, she began, sharing the story that had started it all. I never imagined it would lead us here. The giant screen behind her displayed real-time data from courthouses across the country, each point representing a decision made with newfound accountability. Sarah sat in the front row, tablet in hand, monitoring the latest system updates. Their partnership had evolved into a powerful fusion of legal expertise and technological innovation. The Justice Pulse app had just surpassed its millionth download, with users ranging from public defenders to civil rights organizations. The numbers tell our story, Michelle continued, gesturing to the dynamic visualizations. In participating jurisdictions, we've seen a 75% reduction in discriminatory patterns across all types of judicial decisions. But the real victory isn't in the statistics, it's in the lives touched. Her presentation shifted to show images from across the country. Community legal clinics using their tools, law school classes studying their methodology, tech bootcamps teaching coding through Justice Pulse's open-source platform. Each picture represented another ripple in the growing wave of change. During the break, Michelle checked her phone to find a message from Sophia. Got accepted to Stanford's computer science program. Thanks for showing me how tech can change the world. Her daughter's journey from proud observer to active participant symbolized the generational impact of their work. Back in her office later that day, Michelle met with her expanding team. The Data-Driven Justice Initiative had grown into a national organization, with branches focusing on different aspects of legal reform. Lisa Zhang now headed their research division, while Jessica led the educational outreach program. The European Union is adopting our framework, Marcus announced during their evening video call. He was in Brussels, helping implement their system across international courts. They're calling it the Richardson Standard for Judicial Transparency. Sarah rushed in with breaking news. The Justice Department just announced nationwide implementation of our protocols. The celebration that followed was sweet, but Michelle knew their work was far from over. As she walked through the office that evening, Michelle passed the wall of success stories, photographs and letters from people whose lives had been touched by their work. A former defendant whose case was overturned through pattern analysis, a young public defender who won her first major case using their tools, a law student who changed career paths after seeing their presentation. Her phone buzzed with a message from Judge Martinez, now a senior advisor to their initiative. "Remember that first day in court? Look how far we've come." Attached was a photo of his granddaughter studying law and data science, inspired by their story. Michelle's consulting firm had become a bridge between legal tradition and technological innovation. They worked with courts, law enforcement agencies, and civil rights organizations, always guided by their core mission, making justice truly blind through transparency and data. As she prepared to leave, a final email arrived, an invitation to give the commencement speech at her alma mater. The subject line read, "Inspiring the next generation of changemakers." Standing at her office window, Michelle watched the city lights twinkle in the evening sky. The traffic stop that had sparked this journey was now a distant memory, transformed into something far more meaningful than she could have imagined. Her laptop displayed one last notification. A young lawyer in another state had used their system to identify and challenge a new form of institutional bias. The ripple effect continued, each wave carrying the promise of further progress. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patterns to analyze, new systems to improve. But tonight, Michelle Richardson smiled, knowing that they had created more than just a tool or an organization. They had sparked a movement that would continue to grow, evolve, and inspire long into the future.